For more than 100 years, the Haley Red Family Foundation has proudly supported Auburn University scholarships, investing in students' dreams and brighter futures. For over 25 years, we've also stood beside the Sheriff's Girls Ranch, helping young women find hope and opportunity. The Haley Red Family Foundation, building generations of success.
Welcome in again, everybody, to the Terry Bowden Show on the Auburn Undercover Podcast. Today, we've got a special guest with us, longtime Auburn man, Bucky Ayers, who played for Suge Jordan. Welcome in, Bucky. Welcome.
Thank
Terry.
you.
Bucky, good to see you, Bucky.
Coach, it's an honor to be here. Your sister and my wife told me your mom might be watching, and that's why I dressed up so good.
I knew there had to be a reason, and usually there's a woman behind that.
Yeah, they fixed me, but it's an honor to be here with you and Ronnie. And I got a little cough, but I talk kind of slow. Is the show going to be an hour? We might need it.
I was going to say, you may be the only person I know that talks slower than Coach Dye when he talked when he was on the staff. But, it's a great honor, Bucky. I've known you for a long time, you and your wife, Linda. But what I like is that because you end up being a senior football player at Auburn, 1967. Then you were lettered, I think, the captain of the golf team in 68, which is kind of unheard of today. But what I do like is the fact that you played for Coach Jordan. And so many of our listeners, they go back to Coach Dye, but very few have the knowledge and memory of Coach Jordan. And when I got the job here, Coach Dye had just resigned, but there were still a lot of Coach Jordan's people around. And what was it like? What was Coach Jordan? And I think a lot of us who know of Coach Jordan did not know him. But what was Coach Jordan like as a head coach for you at Auburn?
Oh, well, he was a lot like your dad. I think I might have heard him say "damn" one time, and your dad said, "Dad Garn." I remember him missing a 2-foot putt playing with him, and that's what he said about it. But there were a lot of good coaches, and he would fit right in there with Coach Bobby Dodd and your daddy and Coach Bryant, and it was just an honor to play with him. There's a lot of people that asked me, said, what was it like playing for him? And I think that he would come over to you and pat you on the helmet and said, I appreciate you giving that effort. And that's all he had to say, and it'd rev you up to 120% all the time.
I think in today's game, and it's hard. And of course, I'm probably a decade behind you at playing in college, but both of us have to wonder, with players jumping from team to team, portal transfer to portal transfer, you wonder where that connection happens, where you get so close to your coach, where for my lifetime, after my father, the next most important father figure was my football coach. Was that the way? Wasn't that the way it was very much during your day?
It was. And, I was fortunate. Coach Gene Lorendo recruited me in high school, and he and my dad, played at Georgia under Coach Butts, and it was an honor to play under like you did under our dads, and I really didn't know that I was going to go to Auburn, but one of my real close friends, excuse me, I can't get this out of my throat, but one of my real close friends signed with Auburn a year before I did, and he called me and said, Bucky, come on down and play at Auburn. Said Coach Dooley just left, and he didn't like Coach Dooley, and it was the day of signing. Coach Rendo came to Cedartown, Georgia, and I signed. And 2 weeks later, Coach Dooley hired my dad to go to Georgia. and if I had waited a little bit, I think I might have gone to Georgia. But Coach Jordan told me that if I came, that I could play football and golf. And I was opposing quarterback as a freshman with Kenny the Snake Stabler. And we had a good time. We beat. I know that my freshman year we beat my dad. He came down to Auburn, and Coach Lee Haley was my freshman coach, and he was what a great guy. He was, like you said, a father figure, and we beat my daddy, and that was quite an honor. And then in '65, we beat Steve Spurrier down here. It was the first game that Auburn had in Shug Jordan Stadium for national TV, and we upset Spurrier. That was quite an honor. And then in '67, that last year that I played, we had Alabama beat. We were leading 3-0 in the mud, and Stabler picked up a fumble off the snap, and everybody was going left, and he picked the fumble up and went right, and they were holding Gusty Year out, my buddy. He would have made the tackle, but Stabler went about 25 yards for a touchdown and beat us in the mud. But it was a real great honor to play for Coach Jordan. He was a great coach, and I was honored. Like Coach Brother Oliver was, God bless his soul, but he was my defensive back coach. And Linda and I bought Coach Buck Bradbury's house. He was the backfield coach, and Coach Gene Atkins lives right across the street from me here. And Coach Paul Davis was my defensive coordinator. And when we came back here, had a lot of fun with Coach Davis. I never forget, he would love to watch, old movies like Gunsmoke.
Right.
Andy Mayberry, and he would watch old football games that were in black and white. He didn't like to watch color. But all of his drinks, he would ask the ladies that would fix his drink, he said, "You need to go take this water out and add me some color." So he was a mess. He was something else. We had a good time. But Linda and I are blessed to live here, and I never dreamed that I would move back to Auburn and live here. And I was a golf professional out at Grand National, and then the AU club where the Auburn golf team plays out of. And it's quite a treat to have our grandkids here and their sons and their wives and all the family. We get to babysit a lot, which is fun too.
Well, it's just amazing because you're throwing names out there. When I first came to Auburn, Paul Davis would still come around. Buck Bradbury would come by the office every now and then. There was it was amazing. A lot of the coaches that coached for Coach Jordan. In fact, I told our listeners last week that when I would fly to the Auburn club meetings, Miss Jordan would fly with us every now and then, and go with us to the Auburn club meetings to talk to the alumni at those places. But you know what? I think listening to you talk, for some reason, I guess it's proximity. Georgia was our rivalry, just like Alabama, but there was a difference. It was almost like cousins playing each other, where you wanted to beat them real bad, but you didn't hate them like you did Alabama.
I have a lot of close friends that graduated over there and give me a hard time. But Terry, you had a great run here, and it was wonderful. I never will forget Frank Sanders jumping up down there in the swamp and catching that pass and beating Florida. Y'all had a great team, and you had a great coaching staff. Y'all did a great job. And then I listen, you and Ronnie I can't believe I'm just heartbroken for the coaching staff over there, Coach Freeze and all of those coaches, the trainers, the managers, all the secretaries, and what's happened to them. And the other thing is, can you imagine Sam's and Walmart and all the grocery stores of what a backup of toilet paper they have?
They're waiting so much.
I know it.
But you know what? I hope schools, I hope we hang on. I mean, I know everybody's got to win or else. I've been through it. Everybody has. But dang it, we used to wait to the end of the season as much as possible and try to everybody pull together. We could win 5 more games and be 8-4 or 8-3. I know the last 5 games, well, yeah, we would win. So what would be 8-4 if we won the last 5. So it's not over yet,
No.
And so I hope we can all pull together as much as possible.
And just they've had some missed blocks Saturday night that you could just see that if they could just hold them just a little longer. I think that quarterback is a good quarterback, and he's tough. He doesn't mind getting hit. And I know those defensive players they gutted up and played great. And and that the little kicker, you can't blame him. That he's gone through a lot, and it's just one of those misfortunate things. It's tough.
Well, the thing that people don't realize, and we throw it out there, we probably don't take it seriously, but football is a game of inches. It's a game of doing the little things right. And when you lose close ball games, boy, you look back and you see the little things. And that's why it's not that far from the outhouse to the penthouse. The old saying, equal distance from the penthouse to the outhouse as it is. And we're so close. A point here, a touchdown there, a big play, and all of a sudden you win a game. And I don't want to belabor it, but even an officiating call that goes against you can be the difference in a football game. And so that's why I'm saying you just got to keep going. I know when I came to Auburn, we had just come off of 2 losing seasons, and we had lost 3 years in a row to Alabama, and we were looking for something good to happen. And all of a sudden, it begins to happen. And then it builds on itself. And I just hope if our players can hold on and our coaches can pull together, keep fighting through it. This could be the week with Arkansas. This could be the week that it gets turned around, because you never know when that week's going to come.
I agree. Well, let's get rid of some toilet paper this week.
Let's do. Hey, now tell me, how did you now going from football to golf nowadays would probably be unheard of, maybe because we get so bulked up in the weight room. I don't know if that has a lot to do with it. I remember when Tiger Woods first came into the golf world, they say he lifted weights, but it was a different kind, I think. But were you able to play enough golf to keep your game together when you played football, or did you play golf did you play 2 sports at the same time?
Well, that freshman year, I did both. And that after the Alabama game, I think they beat us. They had they went on to win the national championship that year. But Coach Jordan told me, he said, Bucky, he said, I promised you if you'd come down here that you could play football and golf. And so he said, I want you to get ready for this next season. But if you don't make the golf team this winter, he said, I want you back out for spring practice. And I had been through my freshman year lifting weights, and they had the padded room that Coach Atkins worked with us, and all the stuff that you had to run the stadium steps. And I got to thinking, I'm going to make this damn golf team and get out of that work.
Well, you say now that's Coach Atkins. I want to say that's Ace Atkins' dad, wasn't it? Remember, Ace Atkins. A lot of people may not remember, but when we beat Florida in '93, Ace Atkins, the son of Coach Atkins, played for me. And he was a backup, but he went in there and made a big sack. And if anybody's ever seen the old Sports Illustrated issue with Auburn on the front of the picture of the '90s, the perfect season, and it was Ace Atkins. I think he was sacking Danny Werfel or somebody at the quarterback, and his dad was a player. And you mentioned coaches Lee Haley. Lee Haley and my dad grew up together in Birmingham. And Lee Haley was a Auburn guy that also went to Georgia and back and forth a little bit. And of course,
he went over to Georgia when my dad was over there.
Right. And he was also at North Carolina. Of course, this show is sponsored by his son, Tom Haley. I want to say Tom's brother, Dick Haley. Dick Haley played for Auburn, I believe. Tom didn't. I don't think Tom did, but I think Dick did. If you remember Dick Haley, Tom's brother, Tom Haley's brother. He played at Auburn maybe during the 70s or maybe during the 70s or 70s, I think it was in that time. Well, tell me, were people still? I don't want to date you, but I do remember. Were many people still playing both ways in the 60s? Because I don't know when it changed.
Well, there was when I came down here as a recruit. Woody Woodall. He was
Yeah.
a kicker, and he was from Atlanta, and he played both ways. And Bryant Harvard, who was a quarterback down here back in the day, was both ways, played football and golf. And there were a bunch of our players that played football and baseball.
Yeah.
That worked out more than football and golf or tennis or something like that.
Yeah, I probably didn't explain myself. I was talking about the day when you played an offensive position and a defensive position in the same game. Were there any players in the 60s still on your team that still played offense and defense, or they already went to the one platoon system by then?
They were one platoon.
One platoon by then. I wasn't sure. I know my dad played probably, and I guess my father played in the 50s and 40s and 50s. And that was back, I guess, when it was one platoon football back then.
Yeah, good. We had, the freshmen played 4 games, and then you went to the varsity. But I think Pat Sullivan and Terry Beasley, they were freshmen when I was a senior, and they had a great run of winning a lot of games and stuff.
They sure did.
But I tell you what, I think that Coach Freeze, if he would get the Auburn Creed out and let every player read that, and right down at the bottom put a P.S., finish the game and win it. And I think they'll go a long way, because this campus, and I think you know this, Terry, even at Athens or Alabama, Florida, this campus over here, and if you graduated Auburn, it's a different feeling. It's a warmth, it's a love, and everybody has a great time, and they pull so hard for their teams to win. I think Coach Bruce Pearl is a great example of turning that basketball program around, and I know his son Stephen will do a great job, and Coach Butch Thompson, the baseball coach, is they got great guys, and I like Coach Freeze because he plays golf. I think everybody's giving him hell about playing too much golf, but he needs a little R&R occasionally. So.
Well, my dad loved golf. Now, my dad didn't play my dad had a rule. The day that I think the last day of July, he put the clubs away and he picked them back up in the end of February, I think, and played every day. But Coach Spurrier, even while he was winning, if I recollect, he might have played on Thursdays a little bit during the season. He said, "Heck with y'all, I like to play golf," and it didn't seem to affect his football at all. But that it's kind of funny. I don't care where you coach, because I've coached a lot of different places, and my brothers have coached. If you're not winning, there's always something you're doing wrong. There's always something that's making you lose that really has nothing to do with winning and losing. It usually comes back to blocking and tackling and execution, and maybe the ball it isn't round, it's oblong. It doesn't bounce right every time either.
That's right.
Bucky, I have talk a little bit about what did it mean 1989 bringing the Alabama game to Auburn?
Oh man, I think Coach Dye was able to look Bear in the eye and say, "We're coming to Auburn to play that game." And I don't know how they did it, but it was probably the best thing that really grew the fan base stronger and stronger towards orange and blue. And I've sat there in the stadium when Terry was coaching, and then Coach Tuberville, and see that orange and blue sunset across the stadium, and the fan base. I mean, even at the Missouri game, and like you said, Terry, they just were loud, and they carry on. Georgia game. I mean, it's tough to come in and play. And Coach Saban said that it's something about that damn stadium. It's haunted or something. And I mean, it'll get you. And so, like Terry said, if they can just hold on and get a few victories and finish the season, I think Coach Freeze can turn this thing around.
It'll snowball around, and I think a lot of people, I mentioned last week, Bucky. In all my years, because when I left here, I did 10 years of broadcasting, which means I worked every Saturday, and then I've coached up until recently. So I was coaching somewhere else, and last Saturday against Georgia was my first time ever to sit in the stands at Georgia, and I sat there in awe of how committed, how emotional, how much passion, how loud. And I looked around and I said, man, what an honor to coach here. What an honor to play here. And these fans are so emotionally tied. They're so invested in the program. Boy, every player, if they don't get a chance to be around long enough to understand that, I feel sorry for players that when the money pulls them to 2 or 3 different schools. I feel sorry for the experience they don't have and they don't get to have.
These players need to stay loyal to whoever they sign to, and play 3 years, 4 years, and get an education because they got them to fall back on. And I hope that maybe we can, before Coach Tuberville comes to be the governor of Alabama, we can get him to change some things up there in the Senate and get this NIL and transfer a little bit stronger and together.
Well,
make it a level playing field.
Well,
for everybody.
I think you're right, and guys like Tuberville and even Coach Saban, who now is not a coach, he lobbies hard for something that has a reasonableness to it.
Right.
And I'm thinking, and another thing I think about Auburn is coaches. I know if I'm a coach, I'm going to get as much money as I can. And
Sure.
I'm gonna want as big a buyout as I can get. We saw the coach at Florida getting a huge buyout. FSU, I graduated law school at FSU. My dad coached there, but their coaches, they're talking about a $50 million buyout, And I'm thinking the schools ought to say, you know what, if you get that much money, have a good experience. I think you get a lot more value staying here. I think sometimes we ought to. The school is worth more than the coach, at times.
Right.
And if you want to go, that's good. If you can get a better contract, that's good. Shake their hand. But we're Auburn, and I promise you, we'll attract a coach that'll be good enough, and we'll help make him a successful coach too. I think a little bit of that we overlook because it almost seems like we got to have this guy, we got to have that guy, or that coach over there is going to do more than this coach here, and we offer all kinds of incentives that 5 years later we're looking around saying, okay, who's paying for this one,
Right.
And it gets to be a little bit to the extreme, and kind of like it is right now with all these schools deciding they got to do something in the middle of the season. And we're going to play Arkansas, and they've got and Sam Pittman is gone, and they're trying to play as hard as they can, but it's got to be an awful feeling.
Well, Ronnie, and I know that you do such a great job that somebody's going to be pulling your string, and I'll offer you as many golf lessons as you want to start playing golf and enjoying life, and don't get in this rat race.
No. I'll be 70. I don't mind saying I will be 70 in February, and I am undefeated this year in broadcasting and picking. Now, I will say this: I'm not undefeated in picking winners. I'll tell you something harder than coaching a winner is picking a winner with all the spreads and the line and the over and unders and all these things. It's not easy, especially nowadays. It isn't easy. Tell me that. Before I let you go, I had one with the city of Auburn. I've been gone. I left here in 98, maybe 99. I stayed a couple of years or so after I resigned from here and went into broadcasting in New York. I would live here and travel to New York. Then I lived in Orlando. But I came back last week. It's hard for me to get around the way this city has grown. It's not little. It's not the littlest village on the plains. It's still the loveliest village. But Auburn's no longer the littlest village on the plain. That's for sure. It's amazing how much it's changed.
Wow, great. I mean, you go over to Duck Sanford, the Auburn High football field. They got a jumbotron that's bigger than Auburn University, and they put on a great show. They've got a great coach, and I think that, and they're building right up by the Auburn University Golf Club. They're building a brand new high school, another one. So this place has just boomed. There's a lot of traffic at 8 o'clock and 5 o'clock. Ronnie will probably tell you, but it's a wonderful place to live. I mean, people from Montgomery, Birmingham, and all over are coming to Auburn just because the school system is so wonderful. Got a great mayor, and it's a great community. Good fun times downtown, Tumors and whatever the eating places. Back when you were coaching, I mean, it's jumped the fun things to do. It's just right here in Auburn, Alabama.
Yeah, and I'll say this, because my mother, 93 years old, she's we've moved her up to Auburn. She's in not assisted living, but independent living.
Right.
And more retirees are coming back to Auburn to retire, because where else would you want to be but where maybe you met your wife, where you can go to be around young people, be around the memories of your college experience. It's amazing how many people are moving back to Auburn. My sister and her husband, Jack Hines, who was on my staff, they live in Auburn. Their son is a chef at the Auburn Club, where you work, where the golf club you were a part of, I believe, or maybe still are. I know.
Robert's at the AU Club.
At the AU Club over there, and it is a special place, but it is, and it's so great to have you on, Bucky. We appreciate that, because again, I think people they love to read about the past. I went back and looked. I hate to say it, you've been here for about 7 decades. If it's the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, the 2010s, and the 2020s. It's so nice. And you just got to keep on being around. I look forward to, hopefully I'll see you there in a couple of weeks.
Okay, Coach. And it's like your sweet mom. I hope my genes keep on working.
There you go. Thank you so much. And say hello to your precious wife, Linda.
And yours too. Thank you.
All righty.
Thank you, Ronnie.
Thank you.
Take care. But the history of Auburn, you got to appreciate. And I guess I'm very fortunate because my father grew up in Alabama. He didn't go to Auburn or Alabama. He went to Sanford. But all of his friends from Birmingham either went to Auburn or and most of them went to Alabama, because that's in Birmingham. You live in Birmingham, and that's about an hour away. And but it's still a strong Auburn base as well. But so many of the people that have been a big part of the history of this university, a lot of people who don't know me much more than the fact that I coached here in the 90s. But my parents grew up with a lot of old Auburn people, a lot of people that were very instrumental in the athletic department. And my dad was very close to becoming the head coach here before Coach died. And that may have changed his future and all that stuff too, and during his day. But I'm better. What's that? And mine as well. Although he did pretty well at Florida State. And now if we want to talk about coaches that are on the hot seat, we can talk about I went to West Virginia, but I went to law school at Florida State, and I guess we could probably just we'll get to that a little bit later, I guess, talking about, because Billy Napier was released today. Was it yesterday or today? At Florida was fired. And Mike, I can't remember the head coach's name at Florida.
Mike
Norvell. Yeah, Mike Norvell is on the hot seat again, and LSU's coach is on the hot seat. And I guess you know what? I don't know any coach that ever is not on the hot seat to some extent. So I think we have to realize that's part of the nature of the game, is that. You're paid a lot, and I look at my brother Tommy as a head coach in college. I was a head coach. My dad, a head coach at the highest level. My brother Jeff, offensive coordinator at Florida State. My offensive coordinator at Sanford. When you come into this profession, you don't have to guess. You know that it's a win, and if things don't happen, you could be released, and that happens in this business. And so it's not unique to Auburn or anywhere else. That it's what have you done for me lately, and you got to win. And I will say this, and I think most coaches would say, when you sign that contract for $5, $6, $8, $9 million a year, you do understand what that means, don't you?
Right.
They didn't hire you here not to win a championship. Mm-hmm. That when they pay you $8 or $9 million a year at Texas A&M with my good buddy, my young coach Jimbo Fisher, he got paid a ton and got let go for $75 million in his pocket. But when you get paid like that, no matter where you are, and Florida State's the same thing, they have the right, as long as they pay you, you pay you off. They have the right to say, you know what, we're not paying that much money. I hear it every day. I'm in Louisiana. So I'm still in Louisiana, and I hear it for Coach Kelly because they lost, another football game. And so, what I'm saying is I wish we could just keep quiet as much as possible. It's not going to happen on discussion boards. It's not going to happen on the internet. But the more we can stay behind our coach and be helpful to that football team. Auburn is so dang close, darn it. Again, I was down in New Orleans at a wedding this weekend, and I was up all night watching that football game, and all the way to the very last second overtime in that loss. But it was another tough loss for Auburn in a game they could have won.
Yeah, a lot of people on the board have been asking about. I wanted to run this by you on today's show.
Yeah,
about play calling. And if you watch the game, obviously, the question is about play calling.
Yeah.
If you're going to be involved, if you're the head coach and you're going to call plays,
right?
Talk about the process during the week. I mean, you've got assistants that help you with the run game. Saturday.
Yeah, it's difficult, but at least I have experience saying, okay, I coached in the SEC, and I called every play because that's what I did at Sanford and at Salem. And when I came to Auburn, I ran the same offense that I had been running for the previous 10 years. And I had called every play. And in fact, when you're there, you're coaching about every position on offense. You're not really, but you're helping your young assistants because at the lower level, half your assistants are just graduate students. They're not older guys. And so you have to know every position and every assignment on every play. And so when I came to Auburn, and again, I didn't just guess how to do it. I was very blessed. I'm gonna go back a little bit of history. When I was a graduate assistant at Florida State University, that would be 79 through 82. My dad was the play caller. He was the head coach at Florida State, and he was an old offensive coordinator for years. And he became a head coach, and he called the plays. And he was kind of known as Tuberville gets the name too, but my dad was the original riverboat gambler. That Tubbs became the riverboat gambler too, but before he was even coaching, just like before I was coaching in Division I, that my dad was having to find ways to upset people and having to call trick plays and fancy plays. And when you're underdog all the time, which Florida State was back then, that's way. But what happened was, as a graduate student for 4 years and a graduate coach, my job was to self-scout my dad. And the self-scout is where you write down every single play he calls, and you write every single defense it's on and every single situation. And then after the game's over, a couple days later, you're able to sit down with my father or the play caller and tell him, this is what you do on a first down. This is what you do on second down. This is what you do every time you're on the left hash, every time you're on the right hash. And so you know the offense as well as your father. Well, when you're the head coach and you're calling plays, unless you script the plays during the week, unless you're involved in the practice organization. In other words, when I was at Auburn and I was calling plays and we had 11 on 11, I had to, or we had skeleton. I had to know what the defense was giving us. I had to know if we had the scout team there, I had to know what blitzes I wanted to see. And I had to make sure I had the plays that I wanted to go against those blitzes. And I learned. And so by the end of the week, you've got your play calling down because you're scripting the plays yourself. If you're not involved with the scripting, and the practice to that extent, it's very hard to continue to call the plays. And that's why most head coaches, and I think this probably hurt Jimbo towards the end, I bet you, is it the more you feel like you've got so many duties to do, you don't do the things you have to do during the week calling the plays. And that's where you have to spend a lot of time. But I don't think you can call plays on Saturday, this for me anyway, and my dad, without being very involved in how you're scripting the practices. Because you've got to make sure your offense runs a play versus the defenses that you think you're going to see. So you practice it. And then when you get to a game, you know what you think, you have a good idea of what you're going to see. So all I'm saying is if you're going to be a head coach and call the plays, and I'm speaking of my own situation, and I can't speak for Jimbo Fisher or Hugh Freeze, but I don't think you can't do it unless you're very, very involved. And that's like with me. I was very close to my quarterbacks, whether it be Jimbo Fisher when I was young, or Stan White, or Pat Nix, or Damian Craig, because when I called a play and I sent it into the quarterback, he had to know who I wanted that ball thrown to. He had to have been at practice talking to me, because when I call a play, I want the ball to go certain places. And so my quarterback better be on the exact same page as the head coach, or that ball gets thrown some other place. Now, what I didn't have the luxury of doing, which I can't imagine, is having the microphone in the quarterback's helmet. I didn't have the ability to talk to the quarterback up till about 10 seconds before, whatever it is, before the play. I would have loved that, because the last thing I would have said was, hey, whatever you do, don't take a sack this play. Take one step. The last thing I'd say was, hit that guy or throw it away. Hit that guy or run straight up the middle. I think there are ways you can say things, and I can't speak from experience there, because they just started the helmet rule after I retired right now. But I think if people question play calling, they have to I think that anybody that calls plays has to make that decision, like I had to make. My dad had to make it. Spurrier, I think, quit calling. He's one of the best all-time play callers. But there were at least once or twice in his career where he tried to give it up, and the guy he gave it to wasn't as good as he wanted. He felt like he was, and probably wasn't, and he took it back, And so you'll see coaches. But when you take it back, you better understand you take back a lot of day routines, because if you have an hour and a half practice, the one thing that Bucky could tell you back when he was playing, there was no 20-hour rule. Mm-hmm. When you had to practice, you started at 3:00 and you went till the sun went down if you had to be out there. And you went over everything over and over. And if you had to correct something, you stopped and you corrected it. Well, nowadays, you can't do that. You got a 20-hour rule. You got an hour and a half to be on the field. And so you got to practice fast, and you got to correct things on the run. And if you don't get them corrected on the practice field, you got to get them in the video room. And that means you might have repeated a mistake 2 or 3 times. So you got to know what you're doing when you're doing all that. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that's a process where you have to be very involved in the routine of practice to call the plays during a game, I think, to do a great job of. And there are people who call plays better than others. I don't know how, and I think you would say that about me. I'd say there were some years as I got older, I'm not sure I was as good as I was when I was at Auburn, because when I was at Auburn, I could get up at 4 a.m. and I could stay at the office till 1:00 at night and never sleep and still do it. As I got older, I couldn't do that. And I don't think and I'll be honest with you, Ronnie, I do remember my first year at Auburn, and I was 36 years old. I never went to sleep the entire night before any game. That's all night long. But I watched 16 millimeter film, and I came up with some of the plays at 4:00 in the morning. The day of the game was when I finally decided this is what I'm going to do. When I see this, I'm going to do that. And so it becomes it's a tough and some guys are better at it than others. And but anyway, like I'm saying, I don't know what the discussion has been at Auburn. I know Hugh is an offensive coach, and I believe he's the play caller with help from his assistants. And I think we've already talked, and I don't want to speak for Coach Freeze, because everybody might have a little different way of doing things. And I think we've already discussed that when you say we all put together the game plan, that is the way you do it. I mean, when you say, okay, your offensive line coach, you've got all the 3rd and shorts, you've got all the goal line play, you've got red zone, and you've got 3rd and short. Receiver coach, you've got 3rd and 7 to 10s. And what they do is they don't give you the game plan. They just put all their favorite things together, and then you sit down as a staff, and your play caller you got to make the final decision that he wants to make. Especially if he's your coordinator. Well, he would normally be your coordinator or your head coach. And if your head coach is not sitting in that room deciding what plays he's going to call, it's a difficult time. I was very fortunate, because when I became the head coach here, I hired Jimbo was my quarterback coach. Now, he'd already been with me like 10 straight years. He'd already been with me, and the only offense he knew, because I got him out of high school, was the offense we ran. My brother Tommy was the offensive coordinator at Auburn for 2 years before I got here, and he was at Kentucky, and he was at Alabama. But when I got here, I was running the same offense that he grew up with my dad's offense. So he knew exactly what we were doing, And then we brought Trickett along and with us, Rodney Allison at running back, and Ronnie Garner. I brought him up from a graduate assistant, made him a full-time assistant to be my recruiting coordinator and tight ends coach. And but it was a very tight. We all knew exactly what to do, but you can't have two guys. It's like I say, the biggest thing. It's like chess. You can't have two guys deciding what to move. The guy that's moving the chess pieces knows what he wants to move 2 or 3 pieces down ahead. So he's got to be planning ahead. And then the other thought that I would tell people is that whether you like it or not, some people can move the chess pieces around better than other people. It's just a fact of life. That's why you have champions and others. They all aren't as good at it as others, and some people are better at it than others. And I will use my example as I watched Ole Miss and LSU play a while back against each other. And I said, whoever's calling plays for Ole Miss, if they were calling plays at LSU, I think they would beat Ole Miss. And I said, if you reverse the play callers from the way I thought the game was being played, I said, I don't think it's the quarterback. I don't think it's the offensive line. I don't think it's I think it's whoever's diagramming the scheme or putting together the plan. I like the plan. The plan on one side looks better than the plan on the other. And quite often that's the case, and it all goes together. But anyway, we can debate all we want to. And the reality is that right now, Auburn's just a few things away from winning football games. And statistically, I've looked at the stats. I mean, our stats aren't that different. The quarterback stats, the first down stats, the running, we outran Missouri. They were a little bit better on third downs. We had about the same yardage. We didn't throw the ball for quite as much, but we had a better yards per play carrying the football. The things that I wrote down, 2 things. One, we did not finish. We attempted 4 field. We did not finish. We did not score. We got down in the red zone. And again, that's where your running game has to be really good. We got to the red zone and we kicked 3 field goals during regular season. I won't say we missed 2 and made 1. And then we missed 1 during the overtime. So we were 1 for 4 on field goals. Well, you'd like to have had touchdown efforts down there somewhere, like 2 out of 3. And so we didn't finish our drives, and we had to kick field goals, and we missed 2 of them. Well, you add those points up, and that changes the way the game ends right there. So we didn't finish, red zone finish, and then we got to overtime. The one thing you can't do is take a sack, and that was the one thing I said, well, gosh, we can't. The ball's on the 25, and I'm pretty sure our kicker, his illness, I didn't know as much about his past except that he went through a lot in the offseason, and he still has great accuracy but doesn't have the strength. So when you take a sack, if you just take the ball and down it 3 straight times, you're going to kick a 42-yard field goal, which he could probably make with these. You take 1 sack, it's a 52-yarder, and probably doesn't even have the leg to make that one. And so I said, dang it, it was second and 8. You didn't take a sack. Took a sack on second and 8, took a sack. And now you got in trouble on that one. And then when the next time around, they scored. So now you had to have a score. You didn't have to have a field goal. And the call you can debate till the cows come in it was 3rd and 8, and they ran the ball and picked up. It was 3rd and 6 maybe, or they ran the ball and lost 2 yards to a 3rd and 8, and then the last play of the game was that desperation try to throw the ball, but that was going to be a sack as well. But it was the first you got yourself in trouble on the very first one when we took a sack on 2nd and 8, and when you can't afford to take a sack on during overtime.
No, it's if you're an Auburn fan, you've got to be really frustrated.
Yeah,
I mean, you look around and Gus, when Malzahn was here, he call plays, give it up, call plays, give it up. And, there's some frustration, I think, with the fans, rightly so. I mean, you look at the offense and defense is playing well enough to win, and you've got an offensive head coach and just can't seem to get it across the line. I mean,
And again, I can't speak for everyone. I know in what I'm doing right now, I'm not watching one game. I'm watching tons, all the SEC games as I can see, and I've got to evaluate 10 games or 5 games, and I see a lot of different people and what they do. But some people are better on defense, some people are better on offense. But to be to win in this league in the SEC today, you can't be good on one side of the ball. No, on one side of the ball, you got to be great probably on one side and very good on the other, or you're not going to be successful in the SEC. Because with portal transfer, we're learning now with portal transfer and NIL, the teams that you never thought could beat a different team are now lining up and beating them or playing within 3 points. And you don't have anybody on your schedule in conference that can't play well, Right. And that's just it wasn't like that. It is now.
No, you got Vandy ranked number 10 now.
You got Vandy and the two teams that you would have said, if you told me 10 years ago that Missouri and Vandy would be one-loss SEC teams, both with a shot at the college football playoff and at the conference championship game, I'd say you're crazy. You're crazy. There's not enough good football players in Missouri. Vandy's too academic. You can't. But the times have changed a lot. Now, whether it can consistently hold on to that, is it the NIL that's helped Vandy? Is the coach that's helped Vandy? The head coach had 2 losing seasons until that quarterback transferred, and he was 6-7, and then he didn't win every game last year. I mean, he last year he beat Alabama, then he went 3. Then I think he went 3-3 in the conference, and ended up going 6-6 and 7-6 at the end of the year. But that guy's made a difference. But they also have a better football team. But when I watch them play, they I don't think Prabula is any better than Jackson Arnold. I just didn't. Prabula, I watched him at Penn State. He couldn't start. He was not their best quarterback. He left there because he couldn't beat out Drew Allar, who was Aller, the quarterback at Penn State. He couldn't beat out. So he goes to Missouri. And I think Drinkwitz does a great job. Eli Drinkwitz does a great job.
Great staff,
and Clark Lee does a great job. But Clark Lee, thank goodness he got that quarterback. And I wasn't watching a couple of years ago, but I'm wondering, was Clark Lee running that offense before he got it? I think he brought the quarterback and all the coaches from New Mexico or whatever that. I thought he brought the system too. I wasn't sure, but they are doing their play. I mean, it's no longer an upset. Missouri had a good football team. Auburn people got to understand Alabama barely beat them, and Alabama's ranked pretty dang high too, and they've beaten everybody else on their schedule. And
you got a top 15 matchup there. You got number 15 Missouri, and looking for a coach, and Auburn with a losing record. It's just,
and I think what you've got, and this is why I say if we can all, as much as it's tough because we all want to be coaches and we all want to critique, and that's what every fan has the right to do on a discussion board. But the more we can keep our players positive, right now, I'll be honest with you, the difference between teams like that is they play thinking they're going to win. They play with this inner feeling. And I think Georgia has this little thing going now. They've won so much, they believe they're going to win. But talking about Vandy and Missouri, they've had a couple of years now where they just believe in a game. We've won so many close games that we're going to do the things that it takes to win. We're going to find a way to win because that's what we do. And what happens is you can see it if you lose a few games. I felt that way when we didn't get in the end zone against Georgia, because I'm sitting in the stands. It wasn't just the players; it was all the fans. There was a deflation. There was that sigh of, "Oh no, it's happened again," and you know that the players sometimes get that. And I know because I know a lot of things going on at Florida State, and right now they've gone from on top of the world to now the confidence that it takes to be a good team. You talked out, I sat with Willie Anderson and Wayne Gandy, two of my offensive linemen from 1993. I sat with them at the Georgia game right next to them or down the row. And they'll tell you, I mean, during that, you get to a point where you just think you're going to win. You feel like we're going to do whatever it takes to win, and it's going to be successful. And it's the positive attitude that helps you to win but you got to get that, and that's what the coach has to hang on to. That's what the players have to hang on to, because somewhere along the line it can turn, and when it turns, it can turn everything, And so you got to hope that's the you got to hope that turn's still there for Auburn. That starts with the head coach. He's got to maintain. I don't care what happens outside the offices. He's got to maintain that positive attitude. He's got to maintain the positive attitude with the players. As much as you want to beat them down, you can't beat them down. You want to build them up, and that's hard to do when you start losing close ball games. And then everybody's got to pull together. And Bucky Ayers said it. The one thing I don't know as much about the answer to, and I'm not sure many coaches do, with all the transfers and the portal transfers and the NIL, and the reason people go to one place as opposed to another is it's about nothing but the money. When things get going bad, and they're dealing with this at Florida State, they've been very, very, very heavy in the portal, and they're dealing with it now second year in a row, and they're asking themselves, do these players care that much for Florida State? Do they really care? I mean, if they win now that it's gotten to the point where they're not going to win a national championship, does it hurt that badly that their school is back when Bucky Ayers was trying to tell us about back when he played, and you bleed orange and blue, and you bleed it. And I know when I went to see Pat Nix in his home, his bedroom was orange and blue. It was orange and blue. He didn't dream of being an Alabama. He dreamed of being an Auburn player. And I think
My
now,
was too.
but that's the way it was. You could almost you could go in their home and tell where this kid wanted to go all his life. Now, unfortunately, that can change when you get recruited by one and not the other. But I just wonder how it's going. And that's a new dilemma that coaching staffs have to deal with when you have a couple of games lost that you should have won or could have won, and those players that came there only because it was a better deal. Do they love the university? Do they know the creed? Do they want to be an Auburn man? And all those things.
They're there to get a degree. Do they want to be a part of the community? Do they want to be a part of the university?
Yeah, and this is not an Auburn. This is a college football thing now. It's not just Auburn. But when you're trying to get this thing, when you're trying to get that ship righted, when you're trying to get the focus on before, everybody's got to believe and everybody's got to stay positive and being forward. This is where I'm not going anywhere. We got to get this thing turned around, because I'm not going to. But nowadays, you have to wonder if a guy transfers, but he's got another year or two. Is he, or he came there and all of a sudden he's playing back up, or things aren't going good. And so the first little whisper in his ear from someone else, because believe me, when you lose a ball game or two, you get people whispering in your ear, or in your mother's ear, or in your agent's ear, or in your high school coach's ear, because they're not allowed to talk to you. But I promise you, there's somebody calling that high school coach, hey, when you talk to your player that's over there at Wisconsin, let him know if he ever wants to come back home, we've got an NIL for it. Well, that's somebody's talking to somebody that's not talking to the kid, but I promise you that's how it's done without you getting yourself in trouble for breaking the rules. But that's tampering to that. That's the way you tamper with it, and you cause problems. And I would just say right now the focus is we need everybody as positive as possible, as hard as that is, and say let's find a way, because when the powers that be, whether it be at Florida State or Florida or Auburn, or when the powers that be decide it's time, there's not a whole lot everybody else can do about it. It's time when people feel like it's time, it's time. And but I'd like right now, I see it's so close, and it's so close. And I guess I've seen so many years where you win your last 5 straight and you go to a bowl, and then all of a sudden the next year you're on a roll, and so it's that you're just kind of waiting for that to happen.
Well, we got 5-6 minutes left. What are your thoughts on Arkansas this weekend? This is an opportunity. I mean, Arkansas, that's a tough place to play. I mean, we always had a hard time. It's an early game. It's 11:45 game. It's a hard place.
Arkansas is going to be a very tough opponent. Arkansas, they were so close to getting that thing turned around. Sam Pittman he's got him a quarterback that is a dual threat that can flat play. Taylon Green is a player. And they can score points. That's what scares you, is that it's hard to beat them without scoring points. And that's what, I mean, they played Texas A&M this past week and lost about 3 to Texas A&M. And I want to say it was a 40-37 type of game. I'm looking at the score, but I've watched them, and because I knew if he could have won some close games, they may not have gotten rid of him, but they were kind of leaning that way before the season began. But I think our defense is better than most people they played, and that'll make it be a little lower. But again, you got to finish offensively. You got to score touchdowns, not field goals, and you got to have, and so that's red zone, and that doesn't mean. And now the offense got down there. Now you got to have a great red zone attack and make sure you got a good plan. Like whoever's got red zone during the week, they need to sit for a few extra hours in red zone and make sure they like what they see down there, because that's when you have a whole different defense. When you're an offense and you get into the red zone, your defensive backs are closer. People are blitzing you more often, trying to get you out of field goal range. They're giving you more man coverage, and you got a great opportunity for trick plays or misdirection plays because of the way the defense has to try to make something happen to keep you from getting into the goal line. So that's it's going to be a tough one. It's going to be a tough one, but again, it's one that they're not better than who we played better people. We played close, and so it's one that it's a great one to get the thing turned around on.
Well, and I think people underestimate how hard a place that is to play, especially early in the morning.
Yeah.
We played at LSU, we played them at Florida. I mean, played them at Auburn. I mean, it was especially an early kick out there. I'm not sure what it is, but players have a hard time out there.
Yes, we're talking Arkansas, aren't we? Yeah, it is. And then again, and I guess they're playing in Fayetteville. I mean, if you remember when I was there, we played in Fayetteville. The first year it snowed, and we won a heck of a ball game. Then we played them we played them in War Memorial Stadium in Little Rock one year, and we ended up missing a field goal at the end of the game to win, but they upset us at War Memorial Stadium. But got it. But again, the thing is, it's all about morale and keeping the heads up and don't get their daubers down. But it should be a good one. It should be a chance. Again, it is a chance. I mean, the great thing about Auburn, the way they play defense and the way it's been the last 4 weeks, it's been anybody's game, and it could have been Auburn's. So, and other good games, I was going to say Ole Miss, Oklahoma.
Should be a great game.
Should be a great game. I mean, Oklahoma's a 4.5-point favorite. I don't know. Oklahoma did not. They didn't do well against Texas, but they came out and they just, I guess, dominated South Carolina last week. But that one's I haven't looked at them enough to toss up. Then Alabama, South Carolina. South Carolina's struggling this year. They're having a down year, but they have the same problem a lot that Auburn's had. They've had good defense most of the year, but their offense hasn't come through. Now they've got a quarterback that should be one of the best in the conference, and they haven't been able to protect him. I don't know if you saw they fired their offensive line coach because they had the second most sacks. Well, Auburn and them had the most sacks. Then they came back after that and had 5 more. And then I didn't see what happened against Oklahoma, but I guarantee there was some sacks involved there. Missouri Vandy ought to be a great game. It's at Vandy. Vandy's favored by 3, and
amazing.
That sounds about right. But I would not be surprised one bit if Missouri didn't beat them. Those are 2 teams that are very similar in the way they play football and find a way to win, because that's what they're doing. They're playing like you. If Auburn was playing quite like that, I think Auburn would have that year. Texas playing Mississippi State. Mississippi State is getting 6.5 points. Texas, they barely beat Kentucky, and after beating Oklahoma. And Mississippi State's had some good football this year. They were one of the most improved teams in the conference this year.
They started with the cowbell.
And it's cowbell. It's got to give me more cowbell. And so I with 6.5 points, and of course today's just Monday. That thing will change. That line will change probably before the week gets over. Then Texas A&M LSU ought to be a great game. Texas A&M favored by 2.5, and you talk about people down there, fans everywhere are the same. They want to win. They paid money to win down there, and they're not winning enough. And after last week's,
if LSU loses, it's going to get hot down there too. I'm not.
Well, and and the reality is, I don't like to encourage or discourage. I hope everybody would wait to the end of the season, but they also pay him. They paid him a lot of money, and you know he left Notre Dame to come to LSU because he felt like he'd have a better chance to win a championship at LSU, because Notre Dame is one of those special places to coach. If you're not a Southerner, it's just one of the great places to coach historically in college football. He left there to go to LSU. Probably the money couldn't have been a whole lot better if Notre Dame can pay whatever they want to pay. But they expect to play for the championship, SEC, and play for a national championship. And if they lost this week, they're pretty much out of that with 5-2 right now. If they lose to Texas A&M, and then finally Tennessee, Kentucky, that's a 9.5-point spot. That's just to me, that's a matter of will Tennessee beat them by 9.5. I don't know. The way Kentucky makes it tough, and Tennessee wasn't as good offensively as against Alabama as I thought they would be, but. You know, they some good football games that we have, Dave. The big one, Missouri Bandy, is a really good one that I think will be interesting to watch this weekend. And then, of course, the big one we've got to get Arkansas, because we've still got a few more games. But that could get it all turned. That'd put us at 4-4, with 4 left. And
look, you finish 8-4. I mean, if you come into Alabama with with at 6, 7-4, and
Alabama can always be anything can happen at Alabama. So that's why you got to take it one at a time and take each game one at a time, and have a great game plan. I want to comment about this because I think an example of coaching can make a difference. I couldn't wait for the Louisville-Miami game Friday night. Because I had Todd Stroud. You knew Todd was on my staff at Auburn. He's still on the staff at Georgia at Miami, and I like to see the old men do good coaching. To hang in there, he's hung in there and coaching down there. But both teams had an off week, and then Jeff Brom calls plays, and a lot of people don't realize that. But the winningest coach in the ACC over the last 3 years, not Dabo Swinney, it's Jeff Brom. He's won more games than anybody else in the conference. That's Cristobal or Dabo. But what they did, because when you have an off week, and I'll go back to 97 when we played Georgia, when you're the underdog and you have an off week, you're going to probably put something in to try to get some points early. You're going to have something that they're not ready for completely. And if the team that's favored in an off week, and I've been there too, you're saying, okay, let's just go. Let's don't turn the ball over. Let's don't give up a big play, and let's do what we do, play our best, and we're going to win. Well, here's a Louisville. They come back and they had several plays in the first drive with 3 quarterbacks in at the same time. And they went right down the field and scored a touchdown, all with different things than Miami had ever seen. You could see Miami jumping around trying to figure out. And they got through one full series and got 7. Well, Miami ends up having to punt. Then they get another little series down, but they stop them and hold them to a field goal. He fakes the field goal and scores a touchdown. Well, when you have an off week, it's not hard to have a field goal fake in, but you can't practice it unless you have an off week, because you don't run it correctly unless you have a whole week to practice it. And so here they are. They have an off week, and a coach like Jeff Brom, who's the head coach who calls the plays, and I could see his name coming up for a few jobs. Although he played at Louisville, but there are bigger jobs than that. But he took his off week, knew he was the underdog, knew he had to have 7 or 10 points that he could get by doing something different. And he used that to get 14 points. Then Miami spent the whole day catching up, the whole day. And then who would have known that Carson Beck would throw 4 picks and really threw 5, and one of them got called back. That kind of day, you're not going to win. But Miami still would have won if they had not been behind 14 points. They still would have found a way to win because he had a chance to tie it up at the end of the game, and couldn't get that final drive. Anyway, it should be a good week of football.
Should be great.
I want to thank Bucky Ayers for joining us. It was so great to talk to Bucky. Him and his wife Linda, I've known them since I went to Auburn years ago. Great Auburn man, and a good connection to all the old things that were so great about Auburn. And of course, the Haley Red Development Company, the Haley Foundation, Family Foundation, for what they do for Auburn, and Tom Haley, and what they do for our sponsor, our show. So great to be on. Talk to James Bostic, who missed us, couldn't get on the phone. He says, I've got to be on with us. We'll get James Bostic with us. Willie Anderson and Wayne Gandy both said they'd love to come on with us, and a couple of old great players, those old OL people that we wish we had a few more of them now. And we lost our center that we didn't talk about, did we?
For the year.
That's a tough loss there now.
tough loss.
I didn't even get. I know it's time to cut it short. Remind me next week when you want to. Well, that's bad luck. I lost 5 centers the year that I finished up at Auburn. People say, "Well, don't make excuses." I won't. But tell me, I've never had 5 centers go down in 1 year. Cole Kublik can tell the story. He was the first. Well, actually, T.J. Dunnigan was the first starter that never made it through preseason. He was my starter. Cole Kublik was he had played enough games. I was happy to have him start. He tears his knee up 3 days before the first game. And Mike Pasula, my best offensive lineman, was a right guard. I moved him to center. He tore his leg up the 6th play of the game against Virginia. And then the next guy was Carl Levine. Remember him? He ends up hurting his shoulder and can't play, and end up against Florida with a left tackle playing center. And it was we were behind 7. We'd fumble about every other snap, with guys that had never taken it. Anyway, hopefully we got a good backup center. We can play with a good backup center.
Appreciate everybody joining us, and we'll see you again next week.
See y'all.